Okay, well, let's get started. Okay. So I wanted to make, so I'm calling this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here. There are a couple of quick comments that I wanted to make. First of all, this is a big deal for staff, certainly for the finance staff, but not just for the finance staff. Everybody, I think, in the organization, all the senior people are involved in creating the budget. It's a big deal. It has to be done thoughtfully. There's a lot of money involved, a lot of moving parts. So I would like to express my appreciation to Dale and the entire staff for doing this. The primary focus of our meeting today is to understand the dynamic in this early first discussion draft of the budget and ask questions and challenge and come up with ideas and concerns or likes or dislikes as feedback to Dale and his colleagues. My preference would be if there are community comments, which we will welcome, let's do those at the end so that we can really get the focus and feedback and ideas from the committee members. If there is time, so that's the primary focus of this meeting. If there is time, and if Mike Petreka is able to join us. Okay. We'll have maybe a little update in terms of the Forbes control review proposal. Number 4 on my chair comments list is I was concerned that our investment package didn't have sufficient detail relative to our fixed income portfolio. I'm not saying I have concern about that portfolio, but I wasn't happy with the level of detail. So discuss with Dale. Dale has gone back to Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley has put some stuff together that will be incorporated, I believe, in the next quarterly report. And that will have some additional detail vis-a-vis our fixed income portfolio, which, as you know, is roughly 60% of our MR&R reserve.
Well, just of note, they actually went into the Q2 report and added all that detail into that. I updated on the website that new report with that detail.
Okay, great. And so we'll discuss that in a more meaningful way at our next meeting. And again, I was not concerned or nervous about our fixed income. It is very high quality, to be clear. It is very high quality, but there are some products that are in there, like mortgage-backed securities, which are not necessarily straightforward, and I want the committee to have a chance to talk about a little bit. Okay, new member solicitation. So I would just encourage the members of the committee to put on their recruiting hats and identify members who have skills and the time to serve on the finance committee. It's, as you know, it's very important. There's work involved. And to the extent that each of us can serve as a recruiting agent, that would be very good. Then at the end, we'll ask Dale to review the schedule going forward. And then lastly, the last thing I wanted to say is that my view is that these are public meetings. And because they're public meetings, our members should have the same material that we have when we get it. So what I would like to propose to staff if there is some reason, why they feel it's logistically not possible or otherwise inappropriate to provide the public with the same material as the committee at the same time as the committee, I'd like to know about that in advance. Okay, so
Did you want us to comment, or?
if you'd like, sure.
From my perspective, this is a working session of the Finance Committee. And so much knowledge is contained within the Finance Committee based on prior conversations, meetings. And because it's a working session, all these materials haven't been discussed at this level. And if it's in the quote unquote public forum, I'm not sure that there's any perspective or the appropriate perspective that the Finance Committee already has. And once we get through this meeting and we discuss it, we can talk about what's appropriate, not appropriate. Maybe it is all appropriate to be shared with the membership. And at that point, we could go out to the membership with those materials. We do share the materials here at the meeting and on the screen for everybody to see. So they'll see it, live.
No, Dale, I get that. I appreciate that. And I understand what you're saying. And I don't disagree with it. I'm just saying as a general operating procedure for our public meetings, if they're going to actually be public meetings, as a general matter, the membership should have the material, the final material that's going to the committee members at the same time as the committee members are getting. I'm not addressing this particular meeting. As I say, there may be exceptions. I just am saying.
I understand. Yep.
As a general rule, and if for some reason that rule shouldn't apply, I'd like to, as treasurer, I'd like to know about it.
I understand.
Okay.
I mean, it seems to me that should apply to all. So maybe the board should take it up and kind of get some consistency there.
That's a fair point, John. I'll carry that forward. Okay. Those were my opening comments. Dale has prepared what I thought was a very helpful deck. And so I will turn the microphone over to Dale.
Okay. So as Paul had indicated, I think the main goal or purpose of the meeting is to understand the main tenets of the budget and provide feedback and direction to staff so we can create a next version, which would be presented to the membership on October 16th, materials out to them in advance of that meeting. And then second half of that meeting would be another finance committee review of the budget. If we move down, key considerations, I just wanted to touch base on the strategic philosophy. Generally, I think it's important to budget, and I think we've all agreed in the past, a cash surplus, provided that we don't have excess unrestricted cash that we may decide to bring down, so to speak.
And if you don't mind my kibitzing, we're talking about operating account.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And we actually have done that the last couple of years. And you'll see on the next page that I bring up that we did budget for quite significant cash deficits. We move to the next page.
And I would just underline, I think this is really important. We need to operate, other than exceptional circumstances, we need to operate the association operating budget on at least a break-even basis. It's just asking for trouble if we don't have that as a guiding principle.
So if we move on to the next page, this is the operating fund. It's the format that we've been accustomed to over the last 6 to 9 months. Beginning cash split out between unrestricted and designated. You go through sources of cash, uses of cash, and then the cash surplus deficit. And that's where I'm talking about with regard to, for example, in the 2025 budget column, we budgeted for a $1.3 million cash deficit, primarily to downgrade the cash surplus that we had. And I will say also with regard to the capital improvements in the forecast column, that actually in the next version will be downgraded. That in the well, we're going to do an August forecast that will impact the next version of the budget draft. We'll downgrade that to $200,000 because we won't be spending all of the amenities allotment that we had anticipated. So that impact will be on that cash surplus unrestricted in the budget column. You could basically say that we'd be break even because of that downgrade. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? And then if you go into the ending unrestricted and designated, over to the right is a detail of the designated cash and the projections there. Just to keep you on the flow of that status. And then also with regard to the middle column.
And sorry, Dale,
Yep.
just the terminology, property stands for funded depreciation account.
It does.
Yeah, okay.
It's the balance in the cash and investments
Right,
in the
okay.
property fund. The 2025 forecast column, if you go down to the,
And I'm sorry, the
Yep.
the deferred, what does that mean? In the,
oh, that's the flood. That's the leftover flood dollars that are now designated funds to be reserved for
Flood
future
related.
flood related expenditures.
Yeah.
And then if you look at payroll expenses and the cash surplus deficit for 2025, that forecast has the ARB $200,000 placeholder taken out of the forecast, but because we don't anticipate spending it in 2025, but it's in both budgets, the 2025 budget and the 2026 budget. So that variance per se to those budgets is softened because of that $200,000.
Where is that again? What line item?
ARB would be in the payroll expenses.
Okay.
so there is not a separate budget per
So-
se for 26 for the ARB?
Correct. Right now, well, we do have, in 2026, we have a budget of $200,000 for the ARB, right? It's in payroll expenses. When we go to move towards implementing the ARB within our operations, we actually have a separate fund that will keep track of all revenues and expenses for the ARB. So for budget purposes, I didn't break it out because it's only $200,000, one number.
You know, this is a tricky one. If I had to guess, and it would be a guess, I would guess that the association will not be running and staffing an ARB in 2026, if I had to guess. We also know that the town is exploring, I think that's the right word, exploring, creating an ARB for commercial and multi-use, commercial, multifamily and multi-use facilities. So basically everything but residential. So there are some big strategic moving parts here. I guess I'm okay with this for 2026, but because we're still at a very early stage, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if the end of the day, this comes out, but.
I
Okay.
made a note of it for
Yeah.
later because what I anticipate is us going through this entire thing and then backtracking to
Okay.
say, all right, because we're going to talk about assessments and all that.
Yeah.
I'd rather not get into the detail of decisions on that until we go through it all. Then we come back and, okay, if we target X for a cash surplus or deficit, whatever we decide, then we have to do certain things to get there. And this could be one of them. So we can backtrack
Okay.
to that.
Dale, a couple of things before you leave this page. If I'm reading this right, not incorporating some of the comments that you just made, I'll call it tweaks in terms of amenities or whatever. If I'm reading this right, the budget for 2026 has a $900,000 hole in it. And we more than exhaust our unrestricted cash. We end up at the end of 2026 at $250,000 deficit.
That's how you would read this, yes.
Okay, fine.
And
But
again,
but-
given the amenities thing, that actually now is a break even.
Which is a break even? The cash
230
position?
Yeah. Because the 240 comes out, which ends up increasing the beginning balance, right? And then increases the bottom line. So
Okay,
at this point right now, it's break even, but not break even, it's zero net cash unrestricted at the end of 2026, pending whatever else we do to update the budget.
okay, so the deficit goes from negative 900 to negative
Yes,
650 or
Yeah, I
something.
mean, the deficit for 25 goes down by 240.
correct.
And that carries over into
Correct.
the next year, which then reduces that by 240, which is how you get to zero at
Exactly.
the end of next year.
Exactly.
Okay, a couple of other things from me. Comcast cash royalty. Okay.
So I'm going to go through line by line.
Oh, you are?
Just going to touch real briefly.
Okay,
And
fine.
if it
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
encourages, yeah,
Go ahead.
if it encourages comments or questions, then we can stop at
Go
any
ahead.
junction.
Sorry.
So if you go to the very first line, assessments, we've eliminated Preserve and Ocean Park assessments because in 2026, the budget contemplates not having set those two segments. And then we can see on the next page that we've kept assessment rates flat for this version of the budget. If we do go, I'd like to go to that assessments page just to touch base and see if there's any questions. So the first two rows, general and reserve, are what we use to compare to the max rate analysis, because that's what comprises that maximum rate. So I did a CPI index analysis, and based on through August, this is the information we have. And the max assessment would be the $3,607. And as you can tell, we're well within that. The impact of that alone would be $3.8 million. It's just perspective. It's not that we're contemplating going in that direction. If you go back up, the new rate based on percent increase at the very top, that just is perspective again as to what it takes to generate that delta that we might be looking for. The 3.3 is 3.3 because when I did the 10-year rolling average, which is typically what we use for the inflation rate metric, 2022 had a 19% inflation rate. So it's a clear anomaly, right? So I took that out. And when I did that now 9-year average is 3.3%. It's just perspective. The 4.9 is basically the 10-year rolling average. And then you look at 7.5 and 10%.
So 4.9 is a 10-year rolling average unadjusted without the adjustment you just talked about.
Correct.
Okay.
And then it just shows those impacts and rate increases across all of our assessment categories. And then towards the middle of the top section, fees based on assessment rate. The CASIC access fees are based off of the assessment rate.
Right.
And as is the center, rec center initiation fee.
So it's basically $150,000 per percentage point.
Right.
Okay.
And that delta at the grand total, that's the impact across all things that are related to assessment rate.
Dale, have the number of homes that are paying assessments increased in any significant degree? Is the underlying population of assessment payers changed materially?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but yes, these all contemplate the current inventory mix of our properties. So we update the mix, put it into the formulas, and then apply the rates. So the current assessment line item contemplates the current property mix.
Okay, so for example, the 2025 forecast is 13.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do nothing, that number is going to go up.
No, because you're removing preserve and
So, sorry, just organically,
Yes,
based on the population of the island, that number is going to go up somewhat.
based on that mix
Right.
change.
Mix change, okay. Okay,
We go back up, contributions to reserve, line item. We've been pretty darn conservative in the past, and we've outperformed budget. This last year, we're forecasting $3.6 million total. Remember, 15% of it hits the operating budget. We budgeted 2.5 million. This year, in speaking with the real estate entities, they're very conservatively projecting 2.5 million again, acknowledging that that's a very conservative approach. So this year, rather than, again, what we're trying to do is provide a more accurate budget and provide the opportunity to not have an increase in assessment rates. So outside of the inflation rate, I should say. So I put that total at $3 million, acknowledging all of the above. With no comments, moving on to commercial access fees. Again, flat rates.
Just one real
Yep.
thing. If you were to look at what we think, would you say total CTR will be this year, 25?
3 million is
million,
what I'm
Okay, so
budgeting.
that's why you're just saying flat. Your assumption is we'll do 3 million next year too.
Well, we did 3.6. We're forecasting 3.6
That's what
in
I
the
was
current
thinking.
year.
Okay, that's what the forecast, okay, there it is. All right.
And so I'm still
Gotcha.
trying to be conservative,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not overly conservative.
Gotcha.
Commercial access.
but hang
Go
on
ahead.
just a second. So, and I'm not asking you to read the minds of the real estate people, but is it property values are going to go down or transactions are going to go down?
They feel it.
What's driving this?
Well, their projections anticipate transactions going down, but prices going up. So to date, that's the price increases have more than compensated for any decrease in sales.
And you've done the same sort of process, every year where you go out and you talk to people. What was the view last year and how did that compare to where we're gonna end up this year? Seems like I'm just curious as to whether we're being overly conservative on this or not.
For 2026?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Or-
so the best, I'm trying to think about.
Historically.
I'm just trying to validate like your approach and how did you do? You took the same approach last year, right? Where you went out and talked to people and they said this, and then how did we end up versus what people said last year?
I mean, we we blew through the budget. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's why their guidance is 2.5 million and I'm taking it to 3 million because of that historical perspective.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
the budget was 375. We're at
So the one,
forecasting 540.
so there are a couple of things that I think you have to normalize for. I think there was a blip post-COVID.
Mhm.
And then locally, we had a couple of blips
Cape.
in terms of the Cape.
Right.
And, so,
Cape was 2024. So that we anticipated in the budget.
yeah,
Again, we blew through that. This year, there was no development per se, other than, normal sales activity. And we went to or forecasting 3.6. Now, that could change because I've forecasted a certain way based on what we've done to date and so forth. So I'm not guaranteed of hitting that 3.6, but if we're off 100,000 here or there, I mean, it's not going to make that big of an impact, but
Dale, is the new recreation center, Night Heron in here?
that's a change in status that, yes, it will be, or it
Cause that's big, right? I mean, it's a large facility.
yeah, so it's a change from square
Right, we've gone, instead of acreage, we've gone back.
acreage to square footage.
To a square footage count. And I don't remember, Dale would know whether it's built into this number already, I think it is.
Yeah.
But they went out and figured out the square footage of that building, so.
So there is a delta in here for that, facility coming up.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Commercial access fees. Again, the general concept that we've abided by, our philosophy, is that rates increase based on consistently across the board based off of the inflation. Provided that there's opportunity for exceptions. And this year we feel that there's an exception because if you look at these rates, you can see the highlighted areas in 2023, they went up fairly significantly for 2024 and even more significantly for 2025. And you can see the percent increase in the middle, 15%, 20%, 25%, straight down through 66%. So staff's perspective is that it's time to ease that a little bit and keep them flat, at least for this ensuing year. Now, I will say that we've adjusted for volume and the total of what we projected was right at 3.5 million. And I took it to 3.7 million in the total. Remember, 15% hits here and 85% hits the reserve. I took it to 3.7 to account for volume and because we're going to have more or enhanced enforcement. The things that operations is doing within this area should produce additional access fees.
So Dale, here's my thought. I don't think we are trying to be punitive in terms of our access rates. I think there was some catch up that needed to be done.
Sure.
We are where we are. Our cost of doing business is going up. Our revenues need to go up. And so my philosophy would be that if we're gonna, and I don't know what the final number is, but if there's gonna be in effect an inflation adjustment in assessment, that inflation adjustment be reflected in our gate fees as well, just normal course of business.
I would,
So I think, we talked about this last year, right? But we actually went higher against the commercial access, or the commercial vendors than we did against the membership last year. And so we think that we should allow that to ride for this year and then, of course, continue that philosophy looking at 27. But we hit them with a pretty heavy rate increase last year.
and this is a component that also has a market type reference as well. Comparability to other associations. So I'll jot that down.
Right, but the market reference wouldn't say that, oh my God, we're way out in front of the market, right?
We're in,
We're in the market, which is what we should be.
we're not below.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a philosophy of did we, effectively catch up via the big increases last year, and so.
Over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and so really, do we really need to do that
And-
this year or next?
And these rates
Start to adjust.
ultimately get passed on to the membership, right? Because you all
They-
are paying the gate entry fees on the bottom of your invoices, so.
That's absolutely true.
When I joined last year, I remember you saying this the same thing. That was just right when I started. And,
It's a miracle.
and we were talking about, at that time, the assessment for the community would be much higher, somewhere in the 80-something percentage. And so our, task from you was to look at our commercial assessment rates and, our access rates and adjust for that. We did. Then the community rates went back down. We left the commercial access rates.
Mhm.
Good point. Moving on back up to the operating budget. Moving on to the investment earnings. In the operating budget, I have 329,000. That's just based on historical. And we have a little bit higher. Oh, and the forecast should be a little higher for the next version, but we'll see where that ends up. But that's historical reserve. We'll talk about towards the end of this as it relates to the investment earnings.
So how do we, so you don't sort of make some crystal ball assessment in terms of short-term interest rates? That's not.
I tried to do that last year, and who knows where it's gonna go. I could use 3%, 2%, 4%, run out cash balances and all that kind of stuff. And this year I chose to do just a historical and a conservative.
So here's a thought, and it pertains more to the MR&R.
Yep.
Investment income than this, because this is a much smaller piece, both in terms of the total dollars invested and also in terms of the returns. But it applies both places. I wonder, for budgeting purposes, if it wouldn't make sense to have a consistent approach rather than trying to guess interest rates or what's the equity market going to do, or if we were just to say, okay, for our operating account investment portfolio, which is by definition shorter term, it's 0 to, I don't know, 18 months or something like that. We're going to take the 10-year average of 2-year treasuries or something, have a consistent marker. And then similarly for the MR&R, where we have a much bigger number and it's a more complex portfolio, maybe do a similar thing, the 5-year long-term treasury bond. So rather than, trying to, each new committee, is thinking up or down or sideways, just have a framework that will be conservative, shorter term interest rate based, longer term interest rate based. And it could be worse than that because bond values could drop too, but at least it would be a standard approach to forecasting something that is unforecastable. So it's just a thought.
Mhm. Part of the challenge too is in the operating, so much of the dollars are sitting in really short term.
Yeah.
Not in treasuries. And that swings. We're in an aberration right now in that those rates are very close to the treasury rates, if not better. And so I've been earning 4 to 5% on just money market type funds.
Right.
And that is quite significant. Whereas if the market goes back to some normalcy, it might be 2% versus 4 or 5% treasuries, right? So
And so that's what I'm suggesting that we consider, that you consider, that we have what we consider to be sort of a normal pattern of income generation, both short-term operating account and longer-term total investment portfolio, so that we're not, deluding ourselves and our members in thinking that we actually know what we're doing here, because we have no idea.
Well, the markets obviously there are lots of benchmarks in the market
Yeah.
that would indicate what they think, the markets think rates are going to be over the next 12 months. So to basically do a 10-year look back, in my mind, potentially creates a scenario where you understate your investment income. And if you do that, and you put that in the budget, then the members are going to pay for assessment depending on what we have. So to me, I don't disagree with the concept. It's really about picking the right benchmark, and whether it's a market-based, forward-looking 12-month benchmark for short-term and longer duration investment versus a 10-year look back at treasuries. If the 10-year look back at treasuries is 2% and the market thinks treasuries are going to be at 4 next year, we'd be understating our potential investment income. So I'm all for what you talk about. I just think we need to decide what.
I don't know what
benchmark.
I want us to be out of the business that we are totally unqualified to do, which is forecast investment income. And if we can agree, to your point, John, on some data-based proxy, short-term, longer-term, I just think that would be helpful. And then the members would know, like, how do we come with this number? Well, this is our approach. And could it be conservative? Yes. Could it be aggressive? Yes, because we don't know. So anyway,
from your perspective, is that implementing for the next version?
Probably not, Dale, because we have to think through what we want to do. But I think longer term, I think it's something, because it's meaningful dollars.
Sure.
And
It's not really, not in this budget.
no, but this is just the
It's like-
operating account.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
a meaningful thing.
Yeah, in total.
In the
Reserve
replacement.
budget.
Yeah, I mean,
Here
MR&R, it's over $1
like
million.
7% or
Yeah, if you look at the impact of a $50,000 sway on assessment rates, if that's how you make up for any variance, it's not
Right.
necessarily material. Okay. Good.
Yep.
So, I mean, if we want, I think Brand would be a good resource to think about.
So what would be really helpful?
Forward-looking or whatever that benchmark, we can have that offline
Yeah,
discussion.
maybe that's another task of of the finance committee is going into budget season. These are the rates we should use for.
Or the approach.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we move down to payroll expenses, I'm moving to the head count page. Generally, overall, we're staying consistent from prior years. The mix is changing a little bit to better align with needs. And you can see on the head count page is we're swapping out seasonal and part-time for H2Bs, and the total full-time or the total FTEs are dropping.
Do we pay benefits to H2B
No,
heads?
that's part of the benefit to having the H2Bs. If you go back to the operating budget, the budget contemplates a 3 to 4% increase, standard increase. Obviously, that will adjust for each individual employee based on merit. So it's just a a guiding principle. And then in that line, I talk about, there's an offset due to a more scientific calculation of vacation that should be taken. So vacation taken is an offset to actual wages because we've already accrued for the earned vacation. And we've actually put some more detail to that projection in that we're acknowledging that people have a bank and there's a cap to how much vacation can be earned. And that difference becomes how much is taken and offset here. So
How big is that liability on the balance sheet?
$350,000-$60,000. And then employee benefits.
Dale, I have a question before you move on. On your
Uh-huh.
head count chart, you mentioned earlier that the provision for the ARB was in that payroll expense item. Are any of these FTEs reflective of that anticipated function?
No,
It's just a slug of money.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just wanted to double check that. Thank you.
thank you. If we move to the health insurance, page 6, this is a recap of our health insurance program. The first line under 2025 budget, we actually under budgeted, or I under budgeted that line and didn't include a component. So that forecast is level with what we should have budgeted. And the increases are kind of the anticipated increase year over year with a small participation increase.
Dale,
These-
sorry,
Yep,
tell me about the under budgeting.
the 70,000 should have been 90,000 because I missed a component to that number.
Okay,
That-
but that's $20,000 out of $1 million.
Yeah, I'm just
Oh, okay,
explaining,
okay.
for example, administration. Well,
fine.
why did you go from
Okay,
budget to 94 and we
Oh,
didn't?
okay. Fine.
We had a year over year increase and.
okay, fine.
Yep, and the rest of those numbers, 2026 budget, we're utilizing USI's, our insurance agents' projections based off of a lot of information that they glean.
I don't know what to say about this. It's shocking, but not shocking.
It's actually, what do we see in the health insurance? The fully funded programs are anticipating a 26% increase or something like
And
that.
we're still waiting on renewals to come. So that's anticipated this beginning of October, so. And our subgroup that's working on health insurance is waiting on that as well, so that we
So
can.
we are in a,
Look at this
we're in
again.
a challenging spot. We have a, small, relatively small population, but we are self-insured with a stop loss provider, and we have adverse experience. So
Our claims are much higher than what is contemplated per se.
and yet I don't see that in the budget versus forecast for 25. It's like when I saw that you were within $5,000 of budget versus forecast for claims, is that because we're into the stop loss provider significantly?
Well, we do have stop loss, so the claims we get, reinsurance kicks in, so we
Right.
budgeted for the max.
That's the max quote out of pocket. if
Yeah.
you Think about it from
Yeah.
a personal standpoint.
So that's why the stop loss is going up
Right,
so much, and why we're also going to be exposed to additional claims next year. 'Cause
right,
stop
so
loss
they're adjusting.
Provider's going to adjust his attachment point.
Yep,
So instead of 50 grand, it'll be at 75 or 100 grand total. And so we'll end up with more exposure on the claim side and the stop loss, that we're buying is gonna be more expensive.
Right.
So,
They're effectively raising the deductible
Yeah, yeah,
and the premium,
100%.
is what you're basically saying.
because, yeah, so the group that I participate in is looking at, should we be self-insured? Could we move out into the ACA market, and have more of a defined, contribution? So like, hey, here's $1,000, go out and buy the health insurance that you can on the market. And is that a more effective, way to do this? That's allowed under this rule. And then also just looking back at, is there some other, more traditional plan that we could go back to, and then just manage the benefit package to make cost affordable. So those are seems like the three things that we'll be looking at. But this is what USI is saying. These are the numbers.
But any change in that direction would be for 2027, not
This
for
is not
2026. So
typical of the market. This is a challenge that we have, given the demographics that we have in the employee base and the size. We have obviously we have some large claimants. I don't know anything about it, but that's clear.
So the group that he referenced, Dave and, is it Michael? From the finance committee, 2 members from the HR committee, and staff work directly with USI on this whole.
Right.
And we have the alternative plan group has presented. And so we're working through that. We're just waiting on the next quote, renewal quote, to then get the group back together.
So,
But this is a foreshadowing of a 2027 option, right? Not 2026. So this is.
So who is
Yeah,
on
it's
the
too late, in other
alternative
words, to
plan
change.
group?
What's that?
Who is on the alternative plan B? Who's working on that?
Dave and Mike.
Good.
And then Ann and Dieter from HR.
And they are super experienced. Like, there's a.
Dieter comes from that
I think he's
space.
in the A&H insurance business, so.
Okay.
I think you got the
That's
right
great.
people. You sort of have to live with the experience that you have, unfortunately, when you're self-insured.
Yeah.
And you're gonna, when you have this kind of claim experience, you're gonna pay no matter what structure you're using.
So if we go back up to the operating budget, for the most part in here, we've gone through line by line with our department heads and looked at what they need to operate with the mindset of what we've always done isn't good enough. We need to contemplate how efficient we are, how effective we are, put in place the budget that's necessary to do that. For the most part, our activities are very consistent with prior years. I will point out in common area repair and maintenance, utilities, both those are affected by the elimination of the preserve and Ocean Park. You can see other notes there. Professional services, property and liability insurance. I go back to page 6. And as you recall, we are on a May 1st to April 30th renewal period. So there's an apportionment that's necessary. That's why this looks the way it does. The rate adjustments are based on USI input and the current market assessment and client renewal experience. They've renewed a few people recently. This is what they're experiencing. So this guidance came directly from them. 2025 May 1st, those renewals came in a lot lower than what we budgeted because the budget was generated in October, right? We didn't renew until May. So if you look at the 2026 budget, and you look at the far right 2025 budget, we're actually lower than what we budgeted for 2025, and that's the reason.
There's been a pretty significant softening in the property side. And we might see some more of that. We might do better than this. We're seeing rate down 20% in some of the large property. So, but the other ones, there's not gonna be rate down in, you know, umbrella and excess or GL or any of that kind of stuff. But the biggest piece of our insurance is the property piece. So we might have some upside here, but.
Also,
Basically-
And the umbrella
basically
is a
it's the
big
4
piece.
months of 4 months plus the 8 months.
Excess is not
equals
getting cheap.
The 26 budget, right?
correct.
Yeah.
The actual premiums are higher because we're only recognizing 8 months of that increase. Also included in professional financial services are is the placeholder for the internal control review. That was, I sent out last night, I think. The not to exceed is $45,000. We can talk about that at a different time later, what have you, but that's what we've got in the budget, is that the not to exceed. And then legal fees, we're budgeting a decrease in that. I've got a detail of where that sits. We're decreased that down to 158,000. I think last year we budgeted 300,000 just because of all the previous activities we had. So this is I guess a thoughtful approach to the line items that we are included in our activities in legal. And then bank service fees. We've generated a project that we're now switching our credit card processors because we've felt over time that we've had unusual rates and we're saving significantly. Not only that, but we, with the prior processor, for some reason, we weren't able to charge a processing fee on POS groups. And with the new one, we do have that. So it's kind of a twofold. The rates are pretty much halved for processing, and we're able to charge those rates across all of our, the processing fee over all of our collection activity.
So did that involve a new vendor?
Uh-huh.
Who is our card processor? Who is and who we're going to?
Global Payments, we're going to American Bankers. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I just got the thing signed.
And I'm sorry, where does that roll up through?
That's in professional financial services. So that's a part of the savings there.
Well, good.
Yeah, no, well, part of it is, we've been thinking about this for quite some time, but we didn't have the staffing in place to really dig into this project. We got a controller last fall. And
Olivia?
yes, that was one of our main focuses, was we need to figure it out, and we have, so.
So was there an RFP that went out to a number of card processors? Or
Well,
how did you manage that?
not necessarily an RFP, but we approached several.
Yeah, so it was Global Payments, it's going to Atlantic Merchant, it's going from 7.5 to 3.
Percent.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah.
Olivia.
Dale,
Yes.
I think it might be helpful. Because there's so many moving parts in this one line, the professional financial services, it might be helpful to have, you've got the insurance portion broken out as a separate table, but it might be helpful to do a table that just kind of explains those, all the different pieces of that, or big categories of it.
I can tell you.
I mean, you've got it in the notes. I'm just saying for
Yep,
purposes of presentation, it might be helpful to have a small table for that as well.
sure. I can find it and obviously we go through that in detail, but duly noted and we'll do that. Let's see. Capital purchases, if you take a look at that line. I've split that between operating asset purchases here, which are trucks, equipment, and then capital improvements. That is the, and we'll go through the detail. That's the amenities and any improvements to buildings, those types of things.
Right.
This is the capital improvement or the purchases. At the very top, I've noted what is being replaced, the total that is being funded out of the asset replacement dollars. Then there's capital purchases by year. I provided an update. I think you probably have that in front of you because I sent you a whole new deck. But there's an updated version right there as well. So what's on the screen is the older version. I sent you an updated deck, I think yesterday sometime or maybe the day before. So
What is the ARB piece?
AR dollars is asset replacement dollars. That's what we formerly called.
Sorry, ARB. I'm looking
Are you
at,
talking about the admin building renovation?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So what they're proposing, and Jody's better at this than I am, is to realign a little bit in our offices here at Beachwalker to accommodate the ARB staff. I mean, obviously you don't have to do that all at once, right? You don't have to do it until you're ready for it. But it is realigning a few of the offices. It also has in here upgrades to the restroom facilities in here, which are original to, other than the lobby, are original to this building. So doing some renovation to those. What have I forgotten? Yeah, opening up the pass office so it's more of a counter welcome to accommodate 3 employees that are in there and trying to service contractors through a much smaller 1-person thing.
improvements.
It's improvements.
And I may have mislabeled that. It's not predominantly ARB
It's not predominant.
centric. It's, if anything, the ARB component is kind of a side note.
And then down at the bottom, Eagle Point restroom construction, Eagle Point canoe kayak storage. So this $290,000, is that actual construction or is this study, preparation, design, engineering?
That's construction.
This is construction.
That's what the amenities committee recommended to the board. And so we put that into the budget for further finance and board committee discussion. 1 unit of a new kayak.
Right, so this is subject to approval.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, just
Absolutely.
for clarification. Okay.
All of these are.
Dale, I had a couple of other questions on the operating budget. So Comcast cash royalty. And the note says, this is coming to an end. So what is the implication of this coming to an end? Is there going to be somehow a replacement revenue item for this $300,000? What? So, okay, 2026, fine. How about beyond 2026? Is there going to be a hole in the budget that we need to worry about? Or is there going to be a natural expected replacement?
There will be a conversation with the board and Comcast about, Comcast is interested in renewing contracts with the board of directors. And so there will be a conversation.
When does this actually expire?
December.
So it's a calendar year?
December 2026. I think it's December 12th or.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask about, is, amenity user fees. Now, this isn't a huge number, but what is our, if we looked back at the amenity user fees over the last, pick a number, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, what would that show? And what is our general philosophy relative to user fees that are charged to our members?
So, much of this is the grill, right? The activities pertaining to grill, liquor, food, all that, right? That's a good portion of it. In fact, let me see. That ends up being around 400,000, maybe a little over that in the budget. And then there's canoe rentals of 56,000. There's the event fees for Sandcastle, 112,000. Guest pools for the pool, 62,000. That's what comprises that. Over the years, amenity users fees, 2021, it was 365,000.
I guess my question is rates.
Oh,
So rates on events specifically went up with the amenities committee last year because we have to set rates for 3 years because, you know, weddings are planned multi-years in advance. So amenities just looked at the rates again at their last meeting, so you'll have another schedule of rates. You know, all of your events that are, not all of them, but most of your events that are gonna occur in 2026 are already under specific rate contracts. So, but they are recommending increases in their private event rates.
And that's reflected in this.
The recommendation is for out years,
Okay, beyond 26
right, because 2026.
is locked
Locked
in.
in.
They're already under
Okay.
contract. So what you'll see is a 3-year schedule of event rates.
Okay.
so one other consideration, whether it's now or at a later meeting, it doesn't have to be now, but it's also considering an appropriate disposition of any remaining fund balance for Ocean Park and Preserve. Again, it's just a consideration to include in our agenda at some point down the road, whether that's if entities are organized to take over the activities, then it, in theory, could be a transfer to that entity. Is it a credit against member accounts on record at the time of determination? In other words, we probably wouldn't determine that until after the audit in the spring, March, April.
So is that 38 grand? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah, I don't have the number.
It's in your thing.
it's in your box.
Gotcha, okay.
What do we, okay, so it's a tiny number. But
Yeah.
what do we do about the 300,000? 230, 240, 231 for V-Gate.
But V-Gate stays V-Gate unless you.
So we did the
So
renovation.
the idea is, I believe, the last I remember was V-Gate was maintain amount in there that could replace it so to speak.
Okay, so this is a mini MRNR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's sized with that idea in mind.
Generally, yes.
And your V gate's not under flood insurance, so.
Right.
hit by flood,
Okay.
there's no insurance.
And it floods there.
Separate.
Is there a reason why that's not in the MR&R reserve?
Components of it are, certainly, but you don't expect in the MRNR to rebuild the whole building. And so if you lose the whole building, then. have some
Well,
savings.
but isn't the V gate, a separate, I'll use the word entity, that is the responsibility of the people who live behind the second? It's not the entire community.
Correct.
There's an assessment, a
It's
segment assessment for the
it's a
V-gate.
segment assessment. So it really is a separate
And
MR.
that separate segment assessment pays for more than just the building. It's also paying for the security
Right,
officers that are
right.
there. It's paying for the technology that is there, so.
Right, but if philosophically, if somebody says, okay, give us our $300,000 back, the answer is no, because this is available for repair and replacement. Right, okay.
Other questions? That's what I have before I'd like to summarize kind of what, in theory, are the next steps. But-
So Dale,
other
in your
questions?
head,
Mhm.
if we wanted to break even, and there's some tweaks here that you've already mentioned that are not reflected on the written page. But in your head, if we wanted to adjust the assessment rate to get to plus territory or break even territory, what would
So
without making any commitments? I
Yeah,
guess you know,
my
Big picture.
orientation, assuming that one, the ARB $200,000 placeholder stays in the next version.
yeah,
Access rates stay as is going into the next version. That's obviously still up for discussion, but amenity rates are what they are. Investment income stays at the 129,000 that is in there. My orientation would be, because this is a first draft and we're doing a new forecast that I have a deadline, I think August 6th or 8th or something, not August, but October 6th or 8th would be incorporated into the mindset of the next draft. We might be tweaking the budget. My orientation would be, what is an appropriate cash surplus target? And we would adjust the assessment rate, assuming the rest of it stays. We would be adjusting the assessment rate to provide for that targeted
So you're
surplus.
solving for the number that's minus 416 right now. Is that what you're saying? You're like,
Well,
I'm
it's
gonna
more,
target my unrestricted cash.
it's
balance?
more cash surplus. Well, it folds into either, to be honest with you. I guess ultimately it's the unrestricted cash. Because how much unrestricted cash do we think is appropriate to have on hand? Because if that was like in prior years, if that was a very large number, then we might not increase any assessments, right? So ultimately that is.
Yeah, basically what you're just saying is, again, assuming there's a couple of deltas. As you said, there's the ARB, that's 200. There's the amenity this year that's going to bump the cash balance, the starting cash balance, which is 240.
Right.
So the 240 for sure will flow through because
Right.
that will be in your new updated forecast.
Right.
So that would
Well,
get us.
and the new forecast could produce, I mean,
Yeah, there could be other.
maybe it'll be upper or
Yeah,
lower. That's why I say,
understood.
yeah,
You gotta get the new
Yep.
forecast. But if you assume all things equal.
Yep.
Other than the amenity, then you're at zero for next year. The ending
No
number.
cash.
right.
Yeah, because your beginning cash goes up by 240 and therefore your ending cash goes to zero. But that's probably not where we want to be,
No.
right? So,
Not where we wanna be.
we need to, that's your point is.
Yes.
adjust the amenity or any of the revenue sources to achieve what we think the appropriate amount of cushion is in the quote, unrestricted, undesignated
Right.
operating cash.
Right.
And I guess my personal perspective is that notwithstanding the history relative to gate pass rates, my personal perspective is if we increase the general assessment by X%, we do the same for gate passes. Now, there are mechanics, rounding numbers and so on and so forth. But as a general philosophy, I would, that's what my preference would be, at a discussion level anyway. So again, come back to my original question. If we wanted to extinguish, I'm looking at the cash surplus deficit of $930,000. If we wanted to extinguish that based on the tweaks that we've discussed here, what sort of rate increase are we going to need to extinguish that $900,000?
Yeah, so that's where you go to page 3, if you wanted to pick it up all in
Right.
assessment, and some combination of page 4, which would be your access fee, right?
Right.
Those are your two primary
So it's
sources.
roughly $150,000 per percent? Is
Well,
that-
if you look at, if you're trying to get, okay, my orientation is we decide on what we are moving forward with regard to all the other deltas, access rates, amenity rate, whatever. And that's why I say, if those stay where they are, the last difference is the assessment.
Right,
And to get 900 and change, 7.5% impact is $1,050,000.
Right,
So, okay, if you want to be exact, maybe it's 7.2, I don't know.
right. Or if you wanted to raise a commercial access fee some, like you
Yeah,
could
of
raise
course.
those 10%. And not saying we should, but if you did, then that's another 300.
Right, but
So you could figure out what's the combination of inflows that
Sure.
you need to get to, or, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of room to cut the expense side, right? There's not a lot of.
right. We're not going to
That's-
be underinsured.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's not a lot of opportunity. People already know my perspective on certain expenses, but there's not a lot of opportunity to reduce the outflow.
So just in that regard,
Yeah,
we've spent a lot of time in those areas
yeah,
and we'll continue to do that for
Yeah.
the next version. And again, that's why we're saying the target should be X, because all combinations of expenses and revenue will be updated, and what's left, right, with
Yeah.
adjusting will be what's the increase for the assessment.
that's right.
So Dale, here's a thought, here's an idea. For the next version of this, we might, if we agree that the two big revenue deltas, there may be expense deltas that we can talk about, but the two big revenue deltas are the assessment and gate fees. We can't control CTR, we can't control interest rates, but those are the big revenue items that we can control.
And the impact that you get from, you can just see by the line item from access rates is not,
I know,
Right,
and
that's
so
not a big move.
so where I was going was a simple grid. One axis has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4% increase for assessments. The other axis has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4% increase for overall increase for gate fees. And that'll just give us an easy way to visualize where the deltas are in terms of our revenue, controllable revenue leverage.
And like you said, the commercial access, the operating budget's only getting 15% of that, right? So you can raise them 10%, only 1.5 is gonna flow. to the
15% of
operating.
that,
So the
yeah.
big leverage.
That's
is
my point.
Effectively assessment.
Yeah.
Because the access fees, you're just not gonna get much.
That's my point.
As long as the money's going to the reserve.
Right.
So what is the target working towards?
We haven't determined that yet. Again, ultimately, I believe that unrestricted cash balance is the target, because right now, that's a moving number. And we won't know what that is until we get
And
to
so.
the next version.
And part of that too is like, how tight do you want to run it, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
you start out the year with a ton because you
Right.
collect your assessments in March and then you work
Right.
it down. So, there's this concept of, you don't, to me, we wouldn't want to run it when you think about the overall, size of the budget. It's kind of back to like what percentage of your total P&L you kind of want to have to cover variability in outcomes, right? So to me, if you had $1 million, right now we're at endings restricted of 700. So if you said, well, that's roughly.
Sorry,
like 5%.
where is the 700?
Well, it was 700.
697.
It's 940 now. You're just not looking at the right. You're not looking, those numbers changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I think it's back to like what we think's given the potential volatility, recognizing that we'll have a ton of cash at the beginning here and work it down, then it just comes down to like, do we think we need to always have at the end of the year a $500,000?
That's the determination.
That's right.
Because it is at the end, because we get 90 whatever % of our revenues at the beginning of
In
the year.
March,
And so just.
So cash flow in itself
so
isn't an
technically
issue.
speaking, what happens if you run out of money? Like, do you just
That's,
borrow it from the designated and then replenish it, or is that
Well,
not permissible?
They're multiple
designated
sources.
is a designation,
Right.
it's
so
reserved.
that is available.
And all of our dollars, if you're talking about just physical dollars, all of our dollars are in
The operating fund.
operating accounts, and fund accounting distributes that out across reserve. And so at any given point on the books, we might be in a deficit, but we've got plenty of money, right? For example, the operating is short-term cash, right? So if that were to run negative, you're right, I would have to pull some designated, like 12-month treasury or whatever, or that type of thing
Right.
to transfer into actual operating cash.
Or use our line of credit.
Right, so then we're paying somebody else
Yeah, it just comes
to
down.
use that we
Yeah,
have.
there's
abundance
at the end
of.
of the year, there's $4.8 million in the operating fund. Some of it's designated. We could borrow.
All of it is designated.
Well,
Sorry, except for the deferred.
it,
No, all of it is designated.
Yes, that's,
but designated is, we could borrow from ourselves because
yes.
it's all in the operating fund.
Yeah,
but
like you said,
designated-
you just have to liquidate.
From a physical
I
cash
think we
perspective,
could.
I'm not
I
worried.
think we could.
That's the question I'm asking.
I
like-
think we
Yeah,
could. I
yeah.
think if you, Shannon will correct me, but I think if you look at the covenants, I think we could borrow from ourselves.
So
It's
that's
not
what I'm
really
saying.
borrowing, it's not really borrowing.
I was just
We're
gonna say the same thing.
Liquidating
Yeah.
some of the cash in the designated account and transferring it to the operating.
To make
And the
made
cost
good at a
of
later
doing
date.
that is twofold. One, at some point, if we think the right number of designated, we got to put it back.
Yeah.
And two is, you're going to lose some investment income off of whatever you transfer to the extent it's invested, but it's invested in short-term,
Yep.
assets. And it's probably cheaper to do that than it would be to draw down.
But guys,
Right.
I'm troubled here. Yes, we absolutely have to keep an eye on the ending unrestricted cash. Yes, there are other cash resources within the association. But how can we not focus on the net cash deficit?
Because if I didn't spend all the money from the prior year, like to John's point, I think they went around an email, like if I had said, hey, I'm gonna spend money in the prior year on capital improvements, but I didn't spend it, that's showing up in the cash, not in the current year's deficit. And so you gotta keep your eye, the current year's deficit is just the thing that you're doing. This is one way to think about it, I don't know if I'm right, is the item to keep your eye on is the ending unrestricted cash, because that represents sort of how the health of the actual operating fund.
Well,
It's a byproduct of
I
each
disagree with that.
year's cash.
But
surplus.
let's just say, for discussion purposes, that, okay, lo and behold, we don't need $3 million in the funded depreciation account, and we transferred $2 million of that to Dale's operating cash account. So now we have a positive ending unrestricted cash, and we raised the flag. Okay, great, but we're still running a $900,000 deficit. How can that be good?
So
Because
Paul,
I
the
ran
same,
a positive the year before, I'm just catching up, so you gotta look at cumulatively, and the only cumulative measure you have, I think, is the cash.
yes. So the same way that we are considering drawing, like we have in the last 2 or 3 years, drawing down that unrestricted cash, it'd be the same concept of building it back up. So we would track what that effect on, it's the $927,000 deficit is only an impact on the final unrestricted cash, right? So if we target as a philosophy that needs to be between 500 and $1 million, that annual amount becomes the delta that keeps us where we need to be.
Right.
I appreciate that. But my perspective is run rate. If we think that the 2020, any budget, 2026 budget is reflective of the run rate revenues and expenses for our business called Kika, then in my view, we're asking for trouble, or we're handing trouble to our successors by running an operating deficit.
Okay, so
And
let me ask you
I don't
this.
think we
You're-
should do that.
I understand what you're saying, but you can take the opposite side, which is what I was making, which is in 2024, we set aside 681 for amenities that didn't get spent. We assessed the members for that. So we had, that's again, all other things equal, that's 681 to the plus. We assessed the members, that 681 technically went to cash if you hit the budget on everything else. In 25, we set aside 440 for amenities. We're only going to spend 200. So there's another 240. So technically, if all other things were equal, which they weren't, there'd be an extra $1.1 million in cash that we assessed the members for that wasn't spent. So you can work both ways. You just look at the budget. The budget was a negative 1.3, and we're going to come out at negative 608 plus minus the 240. So technically somewhere around 300. So the question is, like, I don't know that you can say we should always operate at zero for the operating.
And I get that, John.
Because of that.
I get that.
That change.
Well, and another way to put that is under a philosophy of running a net surplus, you will be accumulating over years the net or the unrestricted cash, right?
That's right.
So we've been criticized in the past for, well, we've got way too much money. What are we doing with it? And we're just accumulate.
Which is
Unless
why
we-
the last few years, we didn't set the assessment
Right.
at that level to start to bring the cash back down. So now where I think we are is like, we're back to a point of like, okay, what's the minimum floor that we want to have in operating cash?
Right.
And set that, and then going forward, Paul, we set the budget to ensure that we hit that minimum cash level.
And that's,
And in some years that could be a break even or a surplus. In other years, it might be a deficit. It's just basically saying, this is how much, we don't want to overcharge the membership to build cash. But we also don't want to undercharge ourselves and run deficits that we don't have the cash to cover.
I don't disagree with that, John, but I also think it's dangerous if we, and you may disagree with this, which is fine, but if we think that the designated cash accounts have some real purpose in life, right? We should have a name storm fund,
Oh, yeah.
right?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the designated. I'm just talking about the operating.
the unrestricted.
I'm not saying we wouldn't set aside the cash for those things. It's more about setting up what we think the right unrestricted cash balance should be.
Okay, so let's just say for discussion purposes that net of the tweaks that we've done here, the cash operating deficit for the year is, let's say, $750,000. Is that okay?
Yeah, for now, you'll obviously run another set of forecasts.
Right.
But yeah, let's say it's minus 750. Okay, if it's minus 750, we're gonna be roughly at zero, right? For
Or-
operating cash.
Or 250 if you've already accounted for the.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
but I think
yes.
we're all saying we don't think zero is the right number. We think the number ought to be.
Well, to move the needle forward, what do we think for discussion purposes is a reasonable number?
Yeah,
for-
to me, I'd throw out a half.
Yeah,
And just say.
I think it needs to be for unrestricted cash in
Right.
the operating.
Right.
To me, that's a minimum. It should.
Yeah, I mean, when you
For my
look
purpose,
at,
it should be 500 to $1 million.
yeah, I mean, when you look at.
I agree with that.
The revenues, we have total of $16 million of revenue. So 5% of that is 800. So, if you had a 10% variance in your revenue, then it's 800 grand. So we're probably not going to have a 10% variance in our revenue, but that's why maybe it's 400 would be, half that. But I mean, to me, that's why there should be something in there to account for the
You
potential
kind of can't, you
volatility.
can't have a 10% difference and most of your money's coming from assessment.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm just
Okay.
using an extreme
Exactly.
example.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. So 500 would be roughly, 5% or 2.5%, right? Of the total revenue source. And that seems, there's potential, I guess, for some.
And
of that.
this ending
There's
unrestricted
also,
cash
that's
is
just,
year end,
that's
right?
just the
Correct.
revenue side, right?
Yeah, okay.
The expense side.
If you looked at $500,000 as a percentage of the revenue that's at risk,
Yeah.
that isn't assessed, that might be even the better bet. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
almost like 20%.
But that's just your revenue side, right? You
Yeah.
could also miss
Oh,
on your.
fair.
Yeah, you got
Right.
your expenses.
Expense
that-
side. So technically, if you said, I total it all up, it's 30 million bucks, I could have a variance of 10% or 5% or whatever, right? So to me, it's like, you kind of got to look at both sides of the P&L. But I mean, $500,000 doesn't seem unreasonable to have as a cushion for a variance in
Well,
what is $30
and-
million worth of ins and outs.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And the impact, spreading that across 4,800 properties or whatever is not usurious or whatever you call
Right.
that, right? It's,
What was our cash balance in operating at the end of 24?
what was that question again?
What was the cash, the balance that is,
I showed it as 2.1.
so 2.1. So
That's
that's
what I-
why
that's
we,
what I-
that's
but
why we
you
ran
should
that,
confirm that.
that's why we ran that negative
Yeah.
budget last year, was
Yeah.
because we knew we were trying to bring down the cash balance.
It was-
I understand that.
Yeah,
But then,
it was
but
5.2.
then if
million
we,
in 24.
we've migrated into an environment where that quote unquote operating cash surplus has been consumed.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, we're still
That-
running,
No, that's the point.
Wait,
Let's just
that's-
set what we think the minimum should be and then make
That's
sure
the
that the
target.
operating deficit doesn't produce less than whatever our minimum operating cash balance should be.
Okay, so we have, this is a healthy discussion. We are going to be producing for the 16th of October, so in a couple of weeks, another presentation of the budget. So what guidance are we going to give to Dale in terms of the assessment and gate revenue trajectory?
Here's what I would say. Let's agree on what we think the minimum operating cash balance is. So if we think that's 500, again, we can increase it or decrease it, but we could say, make sure that we never drop below $500,000 in operating cash. Then give us expense deltas and revenue deltas off of what your baseline is to achieve that, right? So increase assessments by X would get us to this.
Right,
number.
that's my grid thought.
Access fees, again, not much leverage there. So that's the two kind of revenue inflow side of things that could be adjusted. There's not really.
It's a data table with
Yeah.
the two variables and how do you get to 500?
Right.
Or how do you get above 500 using
Stay above-
various?
stay
So
above
it's
Stay
either,
above.
that's right. It's either revenue increase or expense reduction. So
And I think it's really just assessment
exactly.
and,
There really isn't
access.
anything else
and
because
access fee.
access fees, great, but it's
Because-
15% of.
Oh, that's not.
No,
Yeah.
it's,
So.
But
to
we're,
me, the delta on the top line, on the revenue side, the cash sources is effectively assessment. We could
right,
make a minor tweak in access fees, but only 15% of that.
right. What is it?
increase that flow.
70% of the revenue is.
Yeah, but
Yeah, yes.
it might be.
And then on the expense side, it's gonna be what are things that could, that are material that you could tweak, and there's really not much. There's the amenities. And I don't really see anything else. I mean, they're just,
You mean the 290?
looking to come off the 17,210.
It's
uses of cash.
relatively,
opportunities to reduce
it's
expense?
relatively inelastic,
Yeah.
and there is downside if we get an insurance shock or, whatever.
Exactly. That's why you want to have, we don't know what the insurance number's going to be until they come out next year, right? Well, we know before the budget is finalized.
April.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we won't know before the budget.
No,
So
we'll have
there's a there to say, where do we have variability in the expense side that, up or down, right? Maybe there's.
But see, even if we do anything with $290,000 of amenities, it's not really
Well,
at this point, my thought is
my
to
point is though, if that flowed straight down, that's half your minimum cash balance.
off, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, again, trying to put a bow on this, my thought would be moving this forward. Does the finance committee think that the $290,000 should remain in the budget? If not,
Sorry, 200, what is the 200?
that's the amenities, 150 and 140.
I think it
That's
has to.
It has to.
Approved by the
It has to.
amendments committee, right?
okay. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a delta. Why are we even considering
Right,
okay.
using that as a delta to figure out how we make up the
Yeah.
difference?
don't.
And then it's, to a certain extent, even with access fees, it's such a minimal impact.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's almost 200K related to ARB.
Yeah, ARB maybe, but
Right. And at this point, again, this is a recommendation from this group to the board.
right.
Sooner than later. Now, from my preference would be, all right, is it healthy to include the 200,000 for ARB as a placeholder? Or is it healthier to not? And then it becomes, if it's not in the budget and it comes through, it becomes a board approved
Yeah.
thing that,
So in that case, then
Shannon.
you're probably looking at running a
What
scenario.
do you think on the 250 for 26?
200.
For
No,
ARB.
it's the ARB. In or out?
So based on where your conversations are currently, you're certainly not standing up in ARB in January.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, if you want to keep some number in there, you could lower it to 50 to 100.
What's the
somewhere
total
there.
payroll for ARB?
Oh, gosh, I don't know off
It's-
the top of my head.
It's not 200.
It's
Well, that's
not-
my
200
point.
is basically two positions, right?
That's kind of what I'm asking, like,
It's the director.
It's a starter kit.
It's a starter.
exactly. So is that starter in September of 26, or when's the 200?
Okay, why don't we just make an executive decision? here?
Exactly,
Just
that's what I'm
keep
looking
it-
for.
Keep it in.
That's fine.
Well,
Keep it in.
Do you want
again,
to keep it in or do
um,
you want to have it? I mean,
No,
that's
keep
your
it,
way
no,
to-
keep it in.
Okay.
Keep it in. So Dale, here's a suggestion for the group here. Why don't you do this sort of revenue percentage increase grid, but do a baseline for the next step that retains an operating cash balance of not less than $500,000.
Yeah, which is gonna be technically, I look at your 3.3% assessment, that's your number, because you,
So-
if it flows to 462, I don't know whether reserve impact goes in there or not, but that's 517 there.
so to be clear, increase the assessment to produce the $500,000 minimum, given that we're not changing any of the other components.
Exactly,
At this time.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
yes.
Other than your forecast that you're about to redo.
Yeah, of course.
We're gonna redo the forecast. Hopefully we'll start
For-
to get some insurance numbers in by, early October, which may adjust that insurance number a little bit.
We're tweaking forecasts and we're looking at where we need to tweaking the budget as well. They're both,
To get to a half a
Right.
million.
so then the
unrestricted.
outcome of those activities will produce a bottom line.
That's right.
And
Whatever
assuming
the
that that's a
assessment needs
negative,
To be, to get it to a half.
exactly.
Okay, now I have one other, but I should.
We still
pause
have the
here.
reserve to go through too, but
So, were there committee members online that wanted to
Michael and Mary
make some
Ann.
comments?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is Mike. I like the trajectory and trying to get to the $500,000 cash, excess cash. One thing I think we need to do, Paul, is as the board lays this out, is to actually have a good set of talking points of why we're doing it. It's good housekeeping to do this, because I don't, as you've always gone and talked, we've always talked, Paul, you just don't want them to think the community to think we're hoarding cash. I think that's actually what we should be doing, because you've got a lot of items in play in a $16 million budget. So I am all for it. I just think we need to also communicate appropriately.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think where people probably would have more question might be the designate, right? I mean, that's really,
Okay,
but we can just.
on page 10 is the 2026 first draft reserve budget. The number that is missing, I think, is the ending funded balance percent. If it's on here, I missed it.
ending,
Oh, percent funded.
Percent funded.
Oh.
The metric that we use, yeah.
And I'm assuming it's mid-80s, but that's a guess.
it's, yeah, because obviously we're increasing the ending balance by $2 million,
Yeah. Okay.
assuming that the component lists, yeah, could be high, could be low.
It could be.
Yep.
But anyway, whatever that number
That will be
is
added
that
for the
you
next-
and Jody have agreed on, that needs to be in here.
That'll be added to the next version.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's work to do on that page also around, to your point earlier about what's our methodology for forecasting interest and gains and stuff here.
Yeah, so
More
the
important
sources
here
of
than
cash,
anything
so
else.
investment, okay. So what is the methodology, or I should restate that. Remind me what our methodology is for forecasting investment income.
Again, because it was, do I say it's a swag? It's
No, it's
based on,
swag
his-
is okay.
it's based on historical, last forecast in 2025. Obviously, there was a market dip and the sell-off of the munis resulted in a loss, right? So that's part of that. So I just took a stab at somewhere in between.
So
to be
the
honest with you.
627 reflects the loss on sale of the
Yeah.
meetings. How much was that ballpark? Do you
I'd have to go
remember?
back and
Okay.
look.
Wait, why is the 2025 forecast less than budget?
The munis, so. And then we just.
That's why I think if you can get that number, that'd be helpful just to understand.
The market,
Munis was part of it.
huh?
Munis was part of it. That number I anticipate will probably go up in this next forecast. Remember, this is Q2 forecast.
Right.
So at that time, there was a pretty substantial dip in the market. But then it
Yeah.
came back, but then it came back. So
Oh, it's roared back.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is that this is a
Okay.
Q2 forecast.
So.
We're incorporating the Q3
Okay.
forecast, or the
so-
August
okay.
results.
Fair
in the
enough,
Q3.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's consider an approach to forecasting investment income for the MR&R. And I definitely don't know the right answer. But if we just said to the members, okay, look, we have no idea, we're 40% equity, 60% fixed income. We're just going to use as a proxy the 5-year moving average of the 10-year treasury rate. Okay, then it could be high, it could be low, but it's something that everybody can understand, as opposed to asking Dale to sort of guess or whatever. We need to have a simple, intelligent idea that we can use year after year after year in terms of forecasting.
And again,
Something that we can't know.
that's for the next year's budget process? Or are we talking about that now? Because honestly, for me now, there's no real impact on what we do expense wise, or it really only has an impact of,
The funding level.
yeah. And
I agree.
that doesn't really have any
Okay,
impact on
Fair,
operating.
I get your point. Fair enough.
I mean, the operating side does,
Of course,
but not the MRR.
right.
But I think it's a good idea.
I do
think we
too.
should, and the other thing you could do is ask Morgan Stanley, say, here's what we're trying to do. You guys tell us what you think.
They
I have.
have no idea.
I
They
have,
have no idea.
The markets have ideas all day long on what rates are gonna do, what equity returns are gonna do over the next 12
But
months.
this is
But
not,
it's-
this is not unrealized gains and losses.
no, it's
This
not
is
yield,
interest
it's,
No, I know.
Income and realized.
I
So-
know.
so
Yeah.
this is not a mark-to-market thing.
No,
here.
I know it's not
Okay.
mark to market. I'm talking about just return.
It could, John, honestly, it could be, Katie bar the door, everything is good, perfect scenario. If we get into stagflation, bonds will be down and equities will be down. We have no idea.
so for our purposes for now, are we in a good spot? 750 is as good a number as any? And what's the impact if it's off 200,000? It's funded level.
And this includes realized gains and losses on both equity and fixed income.
It's realized on everything, just not appreciation.
Oh, sorry.
So
Not
primarily.
So
un-
it's so
primarily
unrealized
is
not
dividends,
part of
it's
this.
interest and
Unrealized is not
dividends,
part of
And
it.
then the muni portfolio, which we sold, but other than that,
Okay,
it's only, this is not a mark-to-market.
okay,
Or-
so this is
or
yield.
sell
This
up.
is yield.
Or,
Okay, fine.
or change, yeah.
Fine.
Cash.
Cash, fine. Okay, thank you.
A lot of work.
Yeah,
I-
great
Good
work.
work,
I
guys.
can attest to that.
Yeah.
Guys, work.
And
How many hours you pulled in the
Yeah.
last week?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And I want to say again, that this is what the energy spent here is trivial relative to the total staff effort. So thank you for that.
Well,
And
it
I think this is extremely helpful, extremely healthy discussion. progress. Okay, so will you come back to the committee offline, so to speak, with, okay, I've worked the variables and this is what the assessment number looks like?
Yeah, well, you'll get a new package.
No, before we publish, right?
Yeah, no, without a doubt, I wouldn't, honestly, I wouldn't publish anything to the membership before finance committees has. had a
Right,
look
that's
at
what
it.
I mean by offline. You will
Yes.
come back to us with the
Yes.
working paper that says,
Right.
this is what it looks like.
Right.
And that's, and what we ultimately decide on is what should be presented on October 16th.
Right,
And to your desire, that should get out before October
Right.
16th.
absolutely.
And I anticipate providing the group the actual presentation to the membership for feedback so that it's a collaborative effort, so to speak.
Okay, any other committee member comments on the budget? Okay, we don't have time today to discuss the control review topic. Mike has worked hard on this. And so has Dale. So a lot of work has gone into this. I think it's a important prophylactic for our association to do this. We're convinced, or I'm convinced that it's value for money. It's not urgent because we have a placeholder in the budget. So what I would suggest is that, of course, now we're right in the middle of budget session, but I'd like to have a discussion about this when people have had a chance to really read through this and think about it, understand what the deliverables are and so on and so forth. So that
Was there resistance at the board level on this? Because I thought I heard you say
Yeah.
there was. And
I think, was there resistance? I think two things. I'm dodging your question a little bit. The quote unquote resistance was in two parts. Number one, didn't we just get a spectacularly clean audit? Answer, yes. Question number two, are we really going to get something valuable for this? And so my answers to that, and Mike can speak for himself, my answer to this is we're a large, complex organization. To have a third party come in and tell us that we have governing documents, have policies, we have FCM, we have procedures, and lo and behold, they are working. And there's documentation and there's consistency and there's data and there are systems and it's a controlled environment. I think that would be a healthy thing.
yeah, which I think the whole committee agreed on.
I think we're already.
Okay.
So I don't think
We said that
there's gonna be a.
last
But I didn't want to presuppose that
Yeah.
that people are supportive of this. If there is a consensus in the committee, or at least the members who are present here, then Dale and I and Mike and Shannon will look at this document, see if we need more or less to go to the board, and we'll go to the board.
I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Paul, I do have,
Generally in context with the budget is how it was organized.
Well, yes, but yes, it is certainly linked to the budget, but it really is more than, okay, we have to pay for it, of course, but it's more philosophically, is this something that is going to be good for the community and good for the
Sure.
association?
Well, to me, the other aspect of it is I have 100% confidence that we're going to pass this, right? But it provides a sense of comfort to the community that financially everything's being operating good. So it's not just about the clean audit. One, the clean audit doesn't cover a lot of this.
Right.
Two, the value is to ensure that our financial controls, which aren't reviewed by the audit, are acceptable and, you know, up to speed, which gives the community comfort that their money is being well taken care of. So it's also a validation, if you will, beyond the audit, that our financial controls are good. I mean, it shouldn't happen every year.
Yeah.
And if I compare the 45,000 to amount of money we've spent on design fees for different amenities, I think I'd rather spend the money on 45,000 to ensure our financial controls are good than designing a bathroom. So, I mean, it's back to, you know, where do you want to spend your money? But,
Well,
you know,
and I think the other thing that comes from this, it's, you know, it becomes a good housekeeping seal of approval, but it would also come down to, are any of our controls deficient in any way?
yeah, so we can
Design
fix
and
them.
compliance.
Yep.
Okay.
So, quick comment, the time frame for that internal control for the actual testing is 6 months, because we've done so much implementation of new platforms, you know, all that type of thing. For certain aspects of it, it would be ineffective or inefficient to do more than that. However, if, for example, on the contract compliance type stuff that hasn't changed, we can expand that to a longer period, because, you know, it hasn't changed.
Or we could just delay when we do it next year.
Yeah, I think we said we weren't going to do it until.
Well,
April and
the
May.
problem is with
Post-
delaying it, it just enters in, there's a window and then there's not,
Right.
unless you wanted to delay it a year.
No. Okay, so could I make a motion that we move forward with this, and that there is a collective effort, staff and the committee, to craft a proposal, a formal proposal to the board to do this and include the dollars in the budget. Could I hear from members who are in support of that motion?
I would second.
In favor.
I support it.
Yes. Okay, great. So, thank you for that. And thank you, staff and Mike, for spearheading this. And by the way, I think my sense is, and Mike's closer to this than I am, that Forbes is, I think they will do a good job. I'm convinced that, you know, this is not a sidelight for them. This is a separate line of business that they do. They know what they're doing. So I think they'll do a good job. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I don't know that schedule. So just want to just run them through the schedule here for the remainder of the year.
Well, this is strictly pertaining to budget.
Yeah.
So obviously the 16th, twofold. The first half is member presentation. Anticipate that being 45 minutes to an hour. Second half, actually another work session that would acknowledge and consider the comments from the presentation from the membership, and then move basically to a next draft. And then Tuesday, the 28th, it's a Tuesday because we need to time it for the budget workshop and give me enough time to tweak and present. That's kind of the final draft review of the finance committee, with the goal of recommending that version to the board. The board is getting all the materials at the same time you are. So for this meeting, they've received this package same day, and they're going through the materials simultaneously. So that budget workshop won't be the first time that they see the materials. They'll see the October 16th information and the 28th information as well.
And
So-
then Dale, there is a board meeting on November 3rd. right?
That's
The
right.
budget
That's the
workshop.
workshop.
Oh, the board budget workshop.
Right, and that
The
is,
meeting is delayed by 1 week to the 10th.
Right, sorry.
Yes,
So the 3rd is open or closed?
close to the board.
Okay.
and that, in theory, is basically to work through any final questions, all that type of thing.
Okay, is the finance committee invited to that? Okay, fine.
With,
You are?
with the thought of November 10th being a fait accompli and
Yeah,
they just,
no, just for clarity.
yep, yeah.
Okay, all right, member comments, in the room, Maura. Thank you for your patience.
You're very welcome. I appreciate, Paul, your statement about providing members simultaneously with the information that you receive. We're not dumb people. We can read this stuff, we can understand it based on our experiences, and if we do have questions, we can ask it. So more information is better. If they don't want to read it, they cannot read it, but I've been looking for this for over a week. So I very much appreciate that I have it now. I did have, because I only got it, I probably have other questions, but I focused on 2 elements of the use of cash. So when you're looking at the operating budget, common area, R&M, and utilities. And the 2 things I'm focusing on relate to the same thing, the reserve. These items seem to eliminate costs that KEPA is currently paying for operating the 20 to 22 lines of irrigation, including the separate meters, which is really extraordinary that we have that many meters, but also eliminating the landscape. And I have a concern about the latter. In July 7th board meeting of KEPA, they passed a right-of-way policy through which KEPA ensured that they would continue to maintain their property. 32% of the property in the reserve is owned by KEPA, including the entire entryway. It's landscaped by them, mowed by them, irrigated by them, and of course all the right-of-ways are also owned by KEPA. So I'm confused why all expenses relating to the reserve appear to be pulled out. I don't know that you can answer that, but I do raise it because I don't think it's consistent with the policy passed by the board on July 7th. Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that.
So what's pulled out of the budget is the costs related directly to the preserve in Ocean Park outside of
Standard.
KEPA's standard responsibility. So the segment, right? We have a segment fund that for preserve, that the assessments there, their segment assessments there, and the costs related to non-KEPA owned responsibility type costs go to. That's what's been removed, is
We
that
have
segment.
separate, operating, I'll call them
Yes.
operating budgets for OP and.
Yes, so inland lakes,
Yeah.
they
So I
have,
think it would be helpful to see what the 26 projection looks like for those. If there are material changes being made, I'm trying to understand, to your point, what is the financial impact of these changes on the preserve and the Ocean Park budgets, if you will?
So in the land, like tomorrow's point, the entryway of the preserve, that's already in the land budgets. It's already been in the land budgets for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know how many years we've been doing preserve. So that is unchanged.
Okay.
But that's in a different budget. It's not in the preserve segment assessment budget. Because we don't charge that to you, because tomorrow's point, that's ours, we have to maintain it. So that's within land's budget.
But are there expenses in this budget or in 2025? Are we moving some expenses from the KEPA operating into the specific OP and preserve budgets for 26?
moving into?
No,
there's no incremental expense impact on OP and preserve in contemplated.
our Kika's expenses are coming down.
Right, so the question is, are preserve and OP expenses going up?
TBD.
Well, that's what I'm.
That's up to
what
them.
she's
It's up
asking.
to them.
Well, no, it's not, because you own the right of way, so under the policy, I think you actually have to have the expense in 2026 to mow the right of ways, which you haven't here before because the segment assessment has been paying that. We've been paying Yellowstone to do it, I think Yellowstone, you'll have to do it now, I don't think that's expensive.
But I thought,
But-
sorry, I thought Dale just said
but I
that
think it's incremental.
the standard of care that's in the ROW policy is reflected for the preserve is reflected in this budget.
So, to Maura's point, the preserve is under a contract, right, under Yellowstone, and that's who's maintaining it. Ocean Park has been under Kika's land management. So it's just a redesignation of labor related to land.
In Ocean Park, but not in the preserve.
Well, yes, one to the other. So Ocean Park, we're also losing a lot of our land responsibilities, just like in preserve. But that labor that's available from Ocean Park can manage preserve. Your contractors will, but our labor in Kika is being redesignated.
Just.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, from my perspective, the budget says we are going to not be doing the landscaping preserve or ocean park. That's how it's written. We do still intend, according to the right of way policy, to take care of ways, cul-de-sacs, the medians, those things that are still our responsibility. And because we're eliminating the work that Kika does at Ocean Park, we're gonna redesignate those folks into the preserve to handle that.
To handle the Kika property.
The Kika responsibilities.
Right.
But
But when you say Yellowstone's going away, I thought I heard someone say Yellowstone is going away. So Kika will be like who will be replacing them? Is that what you're
So-
saying? Kika will?
Kika.
Based on, not completely, based on the right-of-way policy, as it stands right now, the area in front of private homes
Yeah,
is going to be maintained by private owners. Whoever owns that property,
Unless you install the bed in that area, then I read the policy as saying you have to.
I don't.
so
Okay.
like, I'm sorry, we can take this offline,
We can't.
but I didn't really appreciate your question because I'm in the preserve.
Yes.
You know, but so like, let's say the split rail fences that are in front of people's homes
Homes.
and the grass pads, wherever those might be. And then there's pine straw and plantings in the other what I always assumed was common area. So you're saying, aside from wherever, like, is there a map that shows where Kika right of way is and where private ownership right of way?
We're working on.
Okay, I think that would be helpful so people can, and the same, I guess, applies for Ocean Park, right? So I think it would be helpful, and again, maybe doesn't need to be part of the budget process, but it would be helpful, I think, for people in those two areas to have a better understanding of like what the implications are for them as a result of these changes. You know, and it's my fault for not really paying attention to the board meeting. But I do think it's going to be informative to those two groups as to what the potential financial impact is as a result of these changes. And so maybe, and I'm happy to help, coming up with some kind of communication to the people that live in those two areas that maybe explain, and maybe there isn't, it's been done and I haven't seen it, but I think probably just from a standpoint of managing expectation, it might be useful to have a little more communication or a set communication that says, here's what the board decided, here are the implications, you know, for the owners in those two areas. And because does that, I'm trying to understand, like OP and Preserve have this separate sort of budget, right? I mean, I've seen those.
Mhm.
Those aren't gonna go away. First,
They are, they're gone as of this budget.
Okay,
No more
so
segment
like,
assessment. No more assessment.
So there's no
more
revenue in this
assessment.
budget and there's
No more
no
segment
expense.
assessment.
yeah,
And-
yeah, but if the group, that's what I'm trying to get at, like, if I'm living there, I guess I want to understand what maintenance will be done and by whom, like, how much is going to be left to the homeowner and how much, like, what I would consider common area, which is like, you know, the pine straw areas that are got, you know, palms in them or whatever, or, you know, or is it just, you know, there's certain areas that are covered by Kika and there's other areas that are homeowner responsible. I think it would be helpful just to understand that for the homeowners to then decide, well, do we need to come together?
Yeah, we
And-
had that conversation months ago.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just missed that.
And
Was that a conversation with the Preserve homeowners?
so there isn't a organized group. of
No,
owners.
right, which I'm maybe thinking we need to do, right? So that's why I'm not being critical, I'm just trying to think through. Ocean Park probably has the same
So we
thing,
met
like,
with-
do we all need to get together and say, hey, this is changing, so based on what the new maintenance and cost of maintenance is gonna be, we have an opportunity to make some decisions as a group.
There were a number of Preserve owners at the board meeting where that way policy.
Okay,
was,
all right. Well, I apologize
And we
for
have went offline with the Ocean Park HOA.
Okay.
landscape committee.
So Maura, that's what you're getting at, right?
Well, I think there's gonna, so there are multiple layers, right? In Ocean Park, they actually have an HOA form.
Yeah,
So
that's different.
We can kind of put that, I think, to the side. For us to form an HOA would take a vote, positive vote of every resident.
Right.
That's never gonna happen.
Right.
So we're in this middle place where we've had different advocates at different points come together as a committee and kind of try
Okay.
to work the key. But in this case, I have to say, I would like an articulation from Kika because they installed a lot of plantings and created beds along various sides
Right.
of the road, which they own, the road right away is theirs. And they put a lot of plantings and pine straw into these separate areas along, including in front of some private homes.
Right.
If they're not saying they're not going, they put those plantings in and they're gonna let them die, unless the owner takes responsibility who has to lot them. That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I think.
Okay.
If we can, and again, happy to go offline and have that conversation and maybe we can talk about
But I
how we
think,
coordinate the Preserve community once the information's there. Like, it really, to me, it starts with what portions are going to be cared for by Kika and what portions are expected to be cared for by homeowners, right?
but Maura, I think the fundamental principle that is written in the right-of-way policy is pretty clear. The Preserve owners are not going to benefit other than for Kika common properties, the little islands and so on, entryway. The amount of maintenance, whether it's for the split rail fence or for the plantings, is going to zero.
But I don't think that's what the policy permits. The fencing, I agree with you. Fencing is an individual. A lot of people have taken it out. Some people have adopted the road. So they've already made their decision that they're going to take care of the area to the road.
Okay,
I think the clarity you see in the policy is completely different than the clarity you see in the policy.
okay.
So for budget purposes, to be clear, the segments have been removed. And based on the direction of the board, if that's accurate, based on the direction of the board, what's in the operating budget are the costs related to what Kika is responsible for providing.
Right. Yeah, which is fine. I don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
problem
I
with
just
that.
wanted to
Yeah,
draw
yeah.
a circle around it.
But that
for the
would
budget.
imply that there already exists something that indicates what portions of those two areas, OP and preserve, are going to be cared for by Kika. So it sounds like you've already done the work. It's really just a matter of figuring out how to visualize it. Exactly.
There's also the question of this budget, of disposition.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we
Which
touched
is-
on
Sorry,
that.
the what?
The disposition of the segments fund balance, which wouldn't occur until
After your audit.
March, April.
Yeah, that's.
And that would be at the
that's
direction of the
38,
board.
29, yeah.
But probably
38.
have some recommendation from the
Okay.
finance committee as,
Okay.
potential.
Because the irony of that is, if that's money that was coming from the assessment of the members of Preserve and OP, then is it appropriate for that money to go back into the Kika budget?
Well, that's the
So then it's
concept
like,
is,
where would it go?
the
That's-
decision point is,
Yeah, it gets refunded back.
That's
well,
what
for
the
example,
policy
for OP, it could be transferring that over to the HOA that then
Yeah, they
would
have
help
an account.
upkeep the
Yeah,
grounds
yeah,
that they're
yeah,
not
yeah,
responsible
yeah.
for.
But Preserve doesn't have that, to your point.
I understand.
And the policy says that that the fund balance has to be returned in some way.
Right.
Following
Okay.
the audit.
Okay, any other questions?
No, I would only comment that I think we are contemplating returning to the HOA. It was assessed against people before the HOA, I believe, was thrust on them. But it certainly wasn't assessed against the HOA, unless you get permission of all the members of the Ocean Park, return it to their HOA. You need to return it to them legally.
Okay.
That's the way.
All right. Any other questions from anyone online?
No one online.
Okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
No, you do not. You have to do your August minutes.
Oh,
And Ellen strikes.
so,
You are
Before we do that, I have one other
supervised.
question. Will the
you know, they
board-
know me. They know me. So,
Will the
with
board be at the October
with the
16th?
acknowledgement
Oh,
of
I
Mary
just
Ann.
have a question before you do that. Will the board be invited to the October 16th?
They're invited. It's up to them whether they attend.
Okay, so Mary Ann had comments that I assume have been incorporated into the early draft. Any other comments relative to the minutes? All right, hearing that, all in favor of adopting the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ellen. Now, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. Dale, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Maura.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
That was funny.
Uh-oh.